America and Russia are at it again, just as they did 60 years ago during the Cold War, when they fought proxy wars right here in Africa, leading to the death of thousands of innocent Africans. They are at it again in Sudan.
How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about the conflict that's happening right now in Sudan and the Americans who were trapped in the country can't get out, and also why the conflict is happening in the first place. Who's fighting? Why are they fighting? There are quite a few questions that have yet to be answered. And before we get into it, let's back up a little bit here to explain a little bit about Sudan. Now, of course, Sudan is in Africa, in the northeastern region. It borders many countries, like 7 countries, I think: Egypt, Libya, Central African Republic, Chad, Ethiopia, Djibouti, and I think one more I'm missing. Of course, South Sudan, if I didn't say that. But it most importantly borders the Red Sea. That's very important. Why? Well, Russia is building a military base right there that'll be manned with at least 300 Russian soldiers and nuclear warships and a few more Russian assets. Okay, very, very important. Now, if you watch the mainstream media here, they'll speak about all the Americans left behind. They'll kind of compare it to the botched withdrawal in Afghanistan. But really, this could be more of a U.S.-Russia proxy war zone, as you saw in the very beginning of this video. Now, before I go any further, let's watch the mainstream media in America's view of the whole situation. Then we're going to get to world news, and we're going to see how the two compare and contrast. If you want to see clips about my commentary, link as always will be in the description. If you're on IG, visit a link in the bio and go to the corresponding article on the website. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
And thousands of Americans still remain in Sudan with no government coordinated plan to get them out. Among them, a Massachusetts mother and her baby girl. News Center 5's Danae Bucci is in the newsroom following this story tonight. Danae?
The family of that mother and child have reached out to government officials asking for help, hoping they too will be evacuated out of the country.
One of my great fears is that we are on, as it were, day one of another long and very bloody cycle of war.
As war rages on in Sudan, 16,000 American citizens are left with no options to leave.
See, already they're not talking about, they're talking about the war, but they're not talking about why it's happening, who's fighting. They're not giving very many details about that. They're kind of glossing over that and focusing on the Americans left behind, because I think that's the thing that we care about. You know, people that are left behind that are American citizens, we're not worried about the actual war and why that's happening.
Including 39-year-old Gillian Clifford of Ashland, who was teaching in the capital city of Khartoum.
This past week has just been day after day of glimmers of hope in a bad situation that then get dashed with the reality a few hours later.
Clifford's brother and sister-in-law have been trying to get her and her 18-month-old baby out of harm's way, but so far their efforts haven't worked.
I'm very frustrated because as a U.S. citizen who works abroad, she's always been told, the U.S. Embassy has her back. And it's very clear that they don't.
The Pentagon has evacuated all embassy personnel out of the country, but military help may not be an option for non-embassy workers.
We have been clear-eyed about how American citizens should not travel to Sudan for months now.
Alex DeWall is the executive director of Tufts University's World Peace Foundation. He says an evacuation on any scale will be difficult.
So you get the idea. They're talking about the evacuation and whatnot, but they're not getting down to the core. What's happening? Why are they fighting? What's going on? What's the reason? Who's fighting? Now let's get to another news clip right here. This is more world news. I'm not really sure where this is from. You guys, if you know in the comments, let me know, please. Let's watch this clip here. And again, if you want to see it in full without my commentary, link as always will be in the description or link in the bio IG.
The Horn of Africa is fast turning into a new hotbed of great power and rivalry, courtesy its strategically significant location. The region at Africa's eastern tip borders the Red Sea. The water body connects Asia to Europe through the Suez Canal. 10% of global trade passes through this region. For Europe, the stakes are higher. Nearly 40% of its trade crosses the Red Sea. The United States, China, France, Italy, Turkey and Japan already have a foreign naval presence here. But there is a new player on the block now. Yes, Russia. Russia will soon have its first base at the strategic waterway. A Russian base is expected to come up in Sudan. Sudan's military junta has completed a review of a pact signed with Moscow in 2019. The Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov was in Sudan last week, and this is what Lavrov said about the naval pact.
Regarding the agreement on the establishment of a logistical support point for the Russian Federation Navy, it has been signed and is in the process of ratification, as you know.
So what exactly does the new pact entail? Russia will set up a naval base in Sudan. It could base up to 300 Russian troops at this base and get hosting rights for its nuclear warships.
So this is a really important thing geopolitically. Very, very important. Russia has no presence there already, but a lot of U.S. allies do, except for China. And China has a military base right there in Sudan as well. So this is part of the BRICS thing, perhaps. This is what I said in a video I did before about BRICS. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. It's not just those countries that are being involved. It's other countries that are kind of like satellites up under them, or might be kind of allegiant to them, or might want to, gain assistance from them. This is how it goes.
In return, Moscow will supply the insurgency-torn nation with weapons. Moscow has pledged support to Sudan at the UN because Sudan faces an international weapons embargo. Its international funds have...
So there is an international weapons embargo placed upon Sudan, meaning basically Western countries and I guess everybody else that recognizes that are not going to give them weapons. Russia's like, hey, you know what? We'll give you a military support and weapons. What's up? What are you going to do? Sign right here. You're good to go. But now the U.S. is like, wait a minute. What are we doing? Are we trying to become Russia's friends? Like, what's happening?
Have also been confiscated after the 2021 coup. Russia and Sudan signed the pact in 2019, but it had been in limbo for more than 2 years. It first suffered a setback in October 2021, and this was when Sudan's civilian government was toppled in a coup. Sudan was cut off from billions of dollars of international funding. This worsened the humanitarian situation, and then Russia invaded Ukraine last February. The repercussions were felt in Africa. The US has warned Sudan of further isolation if it agrees to host a Russian base. In fact, here's what the American ambassador to Sudan, John Godfrey, said last September. I quote, "All countries have a sovereign right to decide which other countries to partner with, but these choices have consequences, of course."
Well, so there you have it. Choices have consequences. Very interesting. There's more about this conflict. I'll link to everything in the description box. More documents and timelines and videos and everything else. But I think the bigger issue here, instead of just talking about the infighting between Sudanese groups, is really a larger conflict. You got the Russian military built a naval base right there. And then the U.S. and NATO was like, hey, wait a minute, what are you doing? You're in a very important part of the world, Red Sea. You have access to the Suez Canal. You can get to the Mediterranean. You can get to the Black Sea. This is going to be a very key thing to keep an eye on. I don't think the framework to look at this should be about the Americans left behind. It should be more about a potential proxy war between the U.S. and Russia over that military base and over the location that Sudan has. Maybe the U.S. wasn't really paying no attention to Sudan. It was like, okay, whatever. All of a sudden, Russia's there. Then they're like, oh, now we got to intervene and do something. That could be what's going on here. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? How do you feel about what's going on in Sudan? You think it's just about the infighting happening and Americans having to be evacuated, or is there more that meets the eye? Is it about Russia and U.S. fighting the proxy war? Is it about Russia and potentially NATO countries fighting the proxy war? Is the whole thing about Russia and the military base behind all this? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I'm at. I think there's much more than meets the eye. I think there's a lot more here, rather than just being about people not being able to go home, Americans being trapped. I think there's more, and I think we will be able to see a lot more as days and weeks progress in this whole conflict. Hopefully we're not in Ukraine part 2 or part 2 million, wherever we are right now. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.